Welcome to Rewired Sober, the podcast that breaks down the real reasons women turn to alcohol. Spoiler alert, it wasn't a character flaw. It was your neurobiology, your conditioning, and the systems that taught women to silence themselves instead of support themselves. I'm your host, Kate Vitella. I've been a registered nurse for well over 2 decades, trained in addiction and mental health, a bit neuroscience obsessed, but spiritually grounded. This is the science and soul work of a woman's recovery, where I help you understand what's happening in your sober brain and reconnect to that deeper inner truth you've always had, that soul level knowing, the intuition the patriarchy has tried to train out of you. When women combine the science of the brain rewiring with that inner knowing, you stop feeling broken and you start feeling powerful. So let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of Rewired Sober. I'm so excited about today. I've been wanting to do this episode for a long time. I just have never come across another human being in this particular space. And this one is about caregivers, nurses in particular, because we spend our careers taking care of everyone else. We run toward danger, toward chaos. We stabilize people in their worst moments. We carry this enormous amount of responsibility, often without anyone ever asking us what it does to us as human beings, and what happens when the nurse is the one that needs help.
Yeah.
So my guest today is Stephanie. She is an ICU nurse with 26 years of experience. And beyond her clinical work, she brings a deeply personal perspective to the field of addiction and recovery. Stephanie has a powerful, compassionate voice. I love following on socials. It bridges healthcare recovery and personal well-being. She's also the mom of 3 and someone who understands firsthand the complexities of navigating life and family in a demanding profession, all while doing this sober in the work of recovery. And we've been friends for a while through social channels, and I recently came across a post that Stephanie shared about having a random UA. And this is something I did not know about her. And it immediately caught my attention because, if you're a nurse, like a random UA, tells a story right away. But it brought me back to something very close to my own journey. This podcast used to be called You've Been Selected. And that title came from my own experience through a monitoring program, looking at those red letters on the app on my phone. And I've recorded, 3 or 4 episodes in the very beginning. If you go all the way back to episode 1, 2, 3 of this podcast, when it was called You've Been Selected, I tell my entire story in detail. But I wanted to talk to Stephanie today about what nurses know exists. It's kind of in the whispers, but it's very rarely talked about openly. So we're going to talk about monitoring programs, accountability, stigma, recovery, and that complicated path that kind of brings you back to yourself and your career. So welcome, Stephanie. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Yeah. We've been following each other on socials for a while, and I knew that you were a nurse. We have so many mutual friends. And then recently with that post about the random UA, I was like, oh my goodness, I never thought about the fact that you may be, or no, are you currently in a recovery, a monitoring program?
I am. And that's crazy, I think, at 5 years sober. It was a very complicated story. I had a relapse in 2020 that earned me 2 DUIs in 2 different states. That's a whole nother episode. And I did not know that I was supposed to immediately self-report. So when I went to renew my nursing license in the spring of 2022, I was about 14 months sober, and the top of the form said, if you have any new charges, you must self-report. And so I self-reported. And It took them 9 months to process my paperwork. And so they kept continuing my nursing license. So I was allowed to continue working. By the time I got the letter in October of 22, and I responded, there was lost faxes on the other end, massive bureaucratic paperwork nightmare. So the program actually started for me on January 3rd of 2023 when I was 2 years sober. They did not care that I claimed to be 2 years sober. That's what they said to me. And so it's a 5-year program. And for me, it has been extremely difficult. As you mentioned, I am working as a nurse. So if I'm working an 8-hour shift, it's always a rush to finish on time, to try to go for the random UA after work. Some of the places close at 4, the place that's the most reasonably priced. So I really need to leave like on time at 3:30 to get there. The other places are much more expensive. There's an urgent care that I could go to. It's $70 to drop my urine. And then I still have to pay to have it processed.
Yep.
I mean, I almost cry when I go there, like, like handing over my payment. And I only have had to go there twice and, after a bad day. So when I first started the program, I thought I would remember. I thought I have these serious consequences and I will remember to check in every day. That was not the case. So I missed check-ins. I received a warning. They were semi-graceful in the beginning. Like, yes, we realize this is difficult. It's an adjustment. You need to set a system, which I wonder what people did before cell phones and alarm and like all that. Stick-it notes everywhere. Like, how did they remember? I had calendar reminders on my phone that would pop up on my screen. But if I saw that at work and I didn't do it immediately, I forget. I would forget. My brain is like, get out on time, get the kids, drive around to sports. What's for dinner? Is it in the crock pot? All these other 10,000 things going through your head. Long story short, I received a warning in June of 2024. In December of 2024, I missed the day after Christmas. I was with my kids at my parents' house, out of my routine. So my nursing license was actually suspended, not because I ever had a lapse in my sobriety, but because of failure to check-ins. And there was actually 2 times that I remembered to check in and didn't go. So, which is probably a huge red flag. Like, you're hiding something, they don't. Yeah. I'm just a number. They don't know me. They don't care about me. I'm case number 3084 or whatever my number is. And I'm just a statistic. So I was unable to work for 30 days. I was suspended. Thankfully, I have been diligent about saving. And so I did have something to fall back on. But, that then it exhausts your fund, like emergency fund or things like that.
I want to back up a little bit.
Sure.
Let's start with explaining what the monitoring program looks like, because I feel like the general public and even nurses don't know. So first I'm going to say, when I went through it, it was 5 years. That was the blanketed mandate. It wasn't like a specified number for your crime. I had to go to weekly peer support meetings with other nurses. I also had to check in daily on an app, just like you were talking about. And if I was selected, then I had to go to a lab, drop off a UA randomly, like that day within a
5 hours.
Yep. I had to pay for it. I had to pay, and it was anywhere from $75 to $150, depending on the type of UA. Once in a while, they would want a blood draw or a hair sample. And then the minute that anyone has a positive UA for anything, or there's some kind of suspect, then your case manager would reach out to you. But otherwise, it was just big red letters on my nursing license, and I had to disclose that I was in this monitoring program. Now, is that what your experience was?
Extremely similar. My manager has a copy of the court order in my file at work. My program in this state includes many of the things that you mentioned: daily check-ins, mandatory therapy, which at the time when the program started, my therapist had set me free. He was like, you are solid in your recovery. I was your bridge between treatment and finding your sober people and your tribe, and which I did. And so I had to go back to him. I'm like, so I mean, We do. And he has been very helpful with family issues. He's not only an AODA, alcohol and other drug therapist. He is a family therapist and a marriage therapist. So he has guided me with my children and, sober parenting and making sure that they're okay. And I actually took my children to another therapist in the office, and then my therapist and the children's therapist would talk about like how we seem to be doing. So some of that has been beneficial, but like we don't talk about the alcohol and other drug part very much. I'm over 5 years sober. We do the normal check-ins. Like, are you taking your medicine? Yes. Are you sleeping good? Yes. Are you making your meetings? Are you doing your sober activities with your sober active group? Those are the things that we're required to ask, or he is. That's probably 5 minutes.
So you have to go to this therapist as part of the conditions of the monitoring program. Because I did too. I forgot that. And then what state are you in?
I'm in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Okay. I'm in Washington state. So
okay.
I have heard it varies a little bit state by state. So there's a mandate to go to a provider. What else does your program look like?
Sure. It has so daily check-ins on an app, like you mentioned. And most days it says you don't have to go. Yeah. When it first started, it was 49 times a year that I was required to go for the mandatory or the random UA. Now, because I've successfully, after the suspension, I haven't missed anything since April of 2025. I'm down to 36 times per year, which I can tell a difference. It's like every 10 days, and that does save money. So I was grateful for that. Work restrictions. So my manager has a copy. I had to pick 3 nurses, and I'm very open about my sobriety. And so it wasn't difficult for me to do that. I've been at my job a long time, almost 17 years, and they have been extremely supportive. So I have 3 coworkers, and if one of them is not there, I cannot work. Right. So I'm a single mom.
I get it.
When my kids are with their dad, I can't work like a 16-hour shift. I know that's not healthy and ideal, but let's be real. When you're trying to slam in hours when you don't have your kids, it's limiting how much money I can make, while costing me money for therapy and the UAs. Thankfully, because my therapist knows me, I only go to him once a month. He sets, based on how he believes I'm doing, how many meetings I'm required to do a week. I don't know if I could ask not to go to AA, like if I said I'm doing this or this, but AA is my pathway. I have to fill out a log for the meetings every quarter, turn in paperwork from my therapist, from my boss, from myself, and a meeting log, which I blow away the requirements. Zoom helps me make meetings all the time when I'm making lunches, getting ready. You turn your camera off, and for me, it works well for me. And I'm a Zoom baby. Like, I got sober during COVID. And so that was really all that I ever knew. I have been, and I do go to brick and mortar meetings, but if that was all that I had, the availability would be so much more difficult. So back to the requirements: work restriction, supervision, therapy, meetings, daily check-ins. I cannot travel out of the United States, which is mind-blowing to me. I mean, I haven't really looked into it. It's not that I have the budget to do so right now. Since I was suspended, I have actual alarms that go off on my phone. My case manager even said to me when I was having trouble checking in, why don't you do it first thing in the morning when you wake up? And I was like, lady, I have to go to work. I have a 5-hour window. She doesn't even realize the complexity, and yet I'm going to not talk about that.
Yeah. No, I get it. And I know it's also like we can't really talk about what we really think, because then you're at risk with your license.
On a positive note, like, this program exists so I can continue being a nurse. For that, I have gratitude. Yes. I was not immediately suspended. I try to always focus on how much better I have it than others, or that it could be worse. For example, if I would have been caught diverting narcotics from the hospital, those nurses immediately get suspended. And some of them do not work for 3 or 4 months. And I know this from nursing peer support meetings. And so then they are humiliated at work, maybe facing criminal charges, withdrawing at home, not working, depressed, embarrassed, withdrawing. I've been on meetings with nurses that are in day 5 of this. And
yes.
So I focus on that. And for me, those nurses might have to change their job, meaning I'm a hospital nurse. I give narcotics. So and I call myself an alcoholic, because I'm an alcoholic, I don't have those restrictions of an addict or an opioid user that I have to abide by. I did not have to switch my job. I'm allowed to give narcotics. My license has never been limited. It's just not a full license. That's the terms that they use in Wisconsin. So if I stay focused on the things that are positive, it allows me to keep going. Like, this is just what I have to do to keep my job. I have a job. And honestly, I love being a nurse. I don't know what else I would do. And I also don't know what else I would do that would make the money that I make after 26 years of nursing. So, gratitude changes everything.
So I've been a nurse for 25 years. When I got in trouble, I remember specifically I had been an RN for 17 years. And I remember thinking, why is a 17-year nurse in a monitoring program? How frustrating. There was a time for me, because I had come from pharmaceutical sales and I wasn't doing bedside care, that I actually tried to call the nursing commission and surrender my license. I was so beat down. I was so depressed. Like you had described the people who are at home and they can't work. I couldn't work as a nurse. I was beat down. I called the nursing commission and I'm like, just take it from me. And they wouldn't. They actually wouldn't just let me surrender my RN license.
Wow.
And rightly so, because there's all these other implications. And then I went to find that even if I tried to say, okay, I'll never be a nurse again, I'm going to go sell real estate or whatever, this would still follow me and I wouldn't be able to do anything else. And so I was actually in a place where I had to transition from one specialty completely into something different.
Yes.
And lucky for me, I was able to get into psychiatric nursing and really focus on co-occurring. And it's just been, when I look back, I'm like, thank God my career took this path, because now I'm doing something I actually love.
Correct.
And we could probably talk forever about the logistics of these programs.
Yes.
And I really like that you're trying to put forward an attitude of like, look, I get to work as a nurse still. They haven't taken my livelihood away.
Right.
And you're in recovery, you're sober, you're doing the thing.
Yes.
And I will say that also I went to AA in the beginning because that was mandated. And then the pandemic hit and the meetings closed and everything went to Zoom. And when things went to Zoom, my options opened up of what type of meetings I could go to.
Yes.
And then these other recovery groups started popping up and I was like, wow, I don't have to go to 12-step. I joined the Luckiest Club. I joined the Sober Mom Squad. I started investigating refuge recovery, Dharma recovery, smart recovery, all the things, right? And then I personally got certified as a nurse in addiction. So it was this beautiful timing for me that I was able to go to live meetings for 2 years and then in 2020 switch to online. But so I love that you're trying to practice some gratitude around this, but you spoke of logistically the challenges. For me, it wasn't a challenge to stay sober, right? I was killing it. Like you said, I was doing the meetings.
Right.
But sometimes I had a diluted UA, or sometimes I was late to the lab, right? Like little weird things.
Right.
Like that.
I had the diluted UA thing too. So it's funny, when I went through some personal stuff, relationship issues, and I became a single mom. And so I was over focused on crushing it, on crushing life. Yeah. I'm going to crush everything. Dinner's in the crock pot. I'm getting the kids to school. I'm doing everything. And I was surviving on caffeine and coffee and Diet Coke. So I love Diet Coke. I had a headache. Very rarely I get headaches. And I had a headache at work one day. And then I went to the restroom and my urine was like super concentrated. I'm like, holy smokes, I'm massively dehydrated. So I got a Stanley and I'm going to drink 2 of these a day and I'm going to rewire and focus on taking care of myself. So I'm drinking the Stanleys at work because I'm a nurse and I'm being healthy and I'm sober and I'm on my feet, and I get busted for diluted UAs.
Diluted.
And right. And maybe you should go first thing in the morning. I mean, the advice that I got was like, okay, at 5 a.m., nowhere's open. Who can hold it when, like, to drive somewhere? I mean, the advice was, I digress.
The advice is horrible. And the best advice I got was milk. Drink milk before. And I actually talked about this on my podcast, that I used to carry a Yeti cup full of milk to the lab, and I would drink it like an hour before I tested because milk's really high in protein. And it will give you a decent sample. It also, hydrates you a little bit. So, and I fucking hate milk. Like to this day. I mean, I hated it before, but I fucking hate milk.
Yeah.
So it was this funny thing. I taped a podcast episode on this, and the Yeti that I carried the milk in, I put a sticker on that said sober gangster because I was like, fuck my life. I have to do this.
Right.
But, like, I can do this. I can do this. Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the logistics. And they would say, well, go first thing in the morning. So I wanted to point out, and I don't know if you came across this knowing, but like in the beginning, I thought the monitoring program was there to, rehabilitate me and get me, like, I didn't know, because I didn't know about any recovery programs. And then I realized, oh no, it's just a monitoring program. Like you said, I'm a number. I have a case manager who just looks at my lab values. She just looks at my check-ins, my spreadsheet. Am I checking the boxes?
Right. Literally. Who's not a nurse?
Yes. And she's not a nurse.
They're not a nurse.
I know. And so, yeah, go first thing in the morning. I'm like, okay,
really?
It was all so logistically challenging. And then you have to find a certain type of job that is willing to be flexible with you.
Right.
I was fortunate, again, very fortunate, that I found a group of people I could be completely honest with.
Yes.
But I had to say, like, hey, I got to leave. And it's no bueno, right?
Okay, so we're being sober and we're focused on health and wellness and our mental health, and you're working a 12-hour shift, questionable healthy. And then you're taking your lunch break to leave and drive, and you're slamming water so that, or milk, making sure that you're going to pee. It never fails that I go to the bathroom before I have to go, and then I'm like drinking water to make sure I can pee. And rushing, not eating lunch, relieving my coworkers first so that I don't feel guilty for leaving. Like, oh, you go take your lunch. And then like snarfing something in the car. And then it's longer than a normal lunch break is. Meaning 30 minutes, it's hard to drive somewhere and wait if you have to wait. Right. I have been blessed with very understanding coworkers. I have had, like 2 years ago, I had some less understanding charge nurses. I'll leave it at that. But management backed me up, and management all the way up to the executive director of the hospital is like aware of my situation, and they're required by law to let me go. Like, if you want me to work and you want me to keep being a nurse, which they need, where I work is extremely short-staffed, inner city, always short-staffed. And let's be real, a lot of nurses don't stay in the ICU for 26 years. That people move on. They become nurse practitioners, whatever. There's not many people. So yes, they want me. And so they work with me. And so during the week, I sign up for 8-hour shifts because I'm part-time and I'm float pool. So a 12 and an 8 is 20 hours. It makes sense that I'm allowed to sign up for 8-hour shifts. If I check in and I don't have to go, I will often stay for the 12. But if I have to go for the UA, then I leave after 8 hours, which is then a mad dash. For example, yesterday, I did not finish my charting. Like, you take care of your patients, you stay up with everything. I had a very sick, septic shock, sick ICU patient, and I left. I said, if anyone says anything about my restraint charting, like I'm going to come back and do it. You have 96 hours to chart. So I'm working on Friday. I will go back. Those are the decisions that I make. And there have been days where I've left for the UA and gone back to finish my charting if I don't have my kids, but on days that I have my kids, like that is not an option. I mean, or you work through lunch to make sure you leave on time. None of these things are healthy.
Yeah.
Yet we're required to do it. And then I would receive emails like, this is your responsibility to do this. And if you don't do this, blah, 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 you will be suspended. I mean, I had so many sleepless nights in the beginning because I didn't realize that they would suspend your license. I thought that like the consequence was taking your license away and you're no longer a nurse. So I just had such a hard time in the beginning, sleepless nights, trying to hold everything together. But still, I try to focus on gratitude because I think to myself, I didn't lose my house. I didn't lose my kids. I didn't lose my job. My family supports me. And then I think about people who lose everything and become homeless and then come back and get sober and go to sober living and work the minimum wage job and go back to school and fight to get their kids back. And that puts it into perspective for me. Like, I just have to keep focusing on those things to keep doing it and not be bitter and resentful. And I have extra reason to be resentful because when my license was suspended last year for missing the UAs, my 5 years started over.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like you said, extra reason to be resentful. And so this program has all these logistical challenges and you're trying to stay grateful. And I completely understand that. I was one of those people that actually had to take a minimum wage job for a while because I could not work as a nurse. So, I'm in risk of foreclosure on my house, like all the things. But yet there was something underneath me that felt at least grateful that I was given a second chance. Like something about the sober journey and the gratitude that I got a second chance. And
exactly.
And I also, deep down, I knew what I had done was my fault, right? Like,
correct.
I got a DUI.
Right.
You have to listen to the podcast episode to hear my whole story, but I tried to throw a fake, I tried to use fake urine. And so I did that. And
Right.
I'm giving a second chance to recover and work through this. And so even though, once I wrap my head around the fact that the program is only to keep the public safe from
correct.
your license, right? From
right.
you being an impaired nurse.
Right.
And then really look at it like, okay, this is my second chance at life.
Correct. And really, like, I have to have that attitude. There's no other way. That's how I am able to keep going. And it's, my kids. So, here's a whole another level. When I first started the program, I was going through a divorce and I was so scared that this could be like used against me. And so I kept it secret from everybody, like except for my mom and dad and my sisters. And so then I was trying to rush after work, go for the random UA, pick up the kids, have nobody know. Until my therapist reminded me, you have nothing to be ashamed of. This could not be used in court against you. You're proving your sobriety. This is a rigorous program. And if you're succeeding at it, you have nothing to be ashamed of. And so I took that with me and I take that attitude with me. And that's what I tell my kids, because if they have to sit in the car, they're like, well, how long do you have to keep doing this? Mom, you haven't drank in 5 years. Why do you have to keep doing this? And I tell them, I'm like, this is my opportunity to keep proving to everybody that I'm sober. I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to worry about. I can't imagine the stress of if I did use something and then have to go for a random UA and wondering if it cleared your system and all that. So that's what I tell my kids. I mean, they're really the only ones that ask. Like everybody else understands. My daughter reminds me, or did you check in today, Mom? Did you check in today? Did you go? Did you go? Yeah. I mean, yeah. So it's kind of just an ingrained part of life and it's not going away for 4 more years.
So you had to start over. Yeah. And
Yeah.
Was there any point when they said you get 5 more years where you were like, fuck this, I'm not, or were you just ready to
So,
keep going?
so the craziest part is that in a warning letter in 24, they had told me that that was a possible consequence. So when my nursing license got suspended, I was like, oh, they did that instead of starting the 5 years over. In December, when I had my 5 year sober anniversary, I gathered all the evidence of. So before I self-reported and they said, you claim to be 2 years sober, I actually had evidence. At the recommendation of my DUI attorney, he recommended this little sober link. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a
Yes,
personal
yes.
breathalyzer. I did
Mhm.
that for 17 months, paid for it of my own, like not court ordered, to document. I had those records. I had all the records and letters that from my second treatment facility that I graduated with honor, whatever. I did a great job. And that my relapse prevention plan and all the stuff that we do, all the therapy that I did, I took advantage of everything, employee assistance. And in addition to my own therapist, I took my kids, like I did everything that I could. Somatic therapy, multiple different types of therapy. And I had all those documents in December. So 3 or 4 months ago, I gathered all that information and I wrote a letter and I was so hopeful. And I said, you said that I claimed to be sober. Here's my evidence. I'm 5 years sober. Everybody knows I recover out loud and proud. Everybody at work knows I don't need 3 people supervising me, because if I showed up impaired, everybody would know because I'm open about it. And the response letter that I got is what crashed and broke my heart. Like, not only are we not granting this request, your 5 years started over. So that I found that out in December of 2025, a few months ago.
Just a few months ago. Oh, and
Yeah.
you're hanging in there. I follow you on social. I love that you're constantly putting content out and it's positive and but it's not Pollyanna, and you continue to keep going because I think, and this is the whole reason why I wanted to have this episode, is that I think nurses are so afraid to be in our shoes that the addiction continues long after it should. And I wanted to talk to you about, like, how much do you think nurses are struggling in silence because they're afraid of losing their license? They're afraid of all this, not because they don't want help, right?
Right.
But it's fear.
Fear. That fear, I very specifically know that I have an alcohol problem. Alcohol is what gives me the most dopamine release. There has been other substances. Alcohol is what took me down. That fear of knowing my addictive personality, I would say, kept me from maybe moving on to diverting narcotics. Because there was days that I felt so bad at work that I was like, man, maybe just one of those little Percocets or Oxys would help make me feel better. I would say it was fear of getting caught diverting that ever prevented me from progressing. It's one of my not yets. If it would have continued, who knows, like, what would have happened. I would never say like that's not wouldn't have been possible. Now I would say that's not possible. But so the fear of the consequences not only prevents people from seeking treatment, I think it keeps them stuck in their disease. And I don't think people realize how these systems, even though they're a royal pain in the butt, are set in place to work with you. That, like, they're working with us, even though it seems like a royal pain in the ass and I hate it and I want to be like, F you. I don't. It's there to help me. And so, or maybe people just want to avoid this program because they know what a pain in the butt it is and it costs money. All of the above. But in reality, my work has been super supportive, and I'm super grateful for that. I'm grateful for the way that it has turned out for me. So I love to share it like you're discussing so that people know that it's possible to continue having your professional license. And we're not just talking about nurses here, anesthesiologists, doctors. There's everybody with a medical license or pilot's license. They have the same circumstance as us. They could lose their license over a substance use issue. So it's anyone with a professional license that is their career, their livelihood, their income, their mortgage payment is threatened directly by their drug or alcohol use. So sharing openly, I do get a lot of comments from people at work, just like, wow, we can't believe you tell everybody that. I don't know. It just doesn't faze me anymore. It's just a part of me.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I noticed that with your Instagram. Before we hit record, we were talking about being fairly new to Instagram as midlife women. And
Yeah.
like, I recover out loud, and people would say to me, I can't believe you put that on the internet. And it's like, I have nothing to hide anymore. Quick pause here, folks. If you've quit drinking, you're in early sobriety, no matter what that looks like for you, but you're still feeling bored or restless or struggling, wondering who you even are now, I want you to know that that is not failure. That's the middle. Now, some people call it the messy middle, but I call it the powerful middle. And I coach women one-on-one through the part that nobody talks about, the identity shifts and the emotional literacy and the rewiring. We are not white knuckling. We are not performative. We are not good girl sobriety. We're having real conversations, real insight, real change. So if this is you and you're ready to stop circling the same thoughts and move forward, book a one-on-one call with me. The link is in my bio, or it's on all my socials at Rewired Sober, and I'll put it in the show notes. Because what I've seen is quitting drinking doesn't automatically make you more confident or calm or clear. It just removes the fucking anesthesia. So if you're sober and you're thinking, oh, cool, now I have all these feelings and zero roadmap, I work with women one-on-one to help build that roadmap. And we talk about boundaries and identity, and we talk neuroscience, and we talk about the stuff you don't say out loud. So if this hits, I'd love to see you on a private session. You're not confused. You're in a transition, and that's sacred. Midlife women in sobriety don't need more rules. They need clarity and confidence, and a fucking coach who won't gaslight their intelligence. So hit me up if you're interested. I'd love to meet you. Now back to the show.
Right.
Maybe this whole experience has just ripped the Band-Aid off my life, where I'm like, there's no skeletons in my closet. I encourage you to Google me.
Right. Right.
There's no more, I got nothing to hide.
Right. And we do this, and I don't want to speak for you. I should say I do this for the people that don't feel comfortable doing so, for the people that don't have the voice, for the people that don't have the outgoing personality. I've always been outgoing. I've always been a big mouth. And
yeah.
And you know, there's a part of my story that I shared in Reels around my sobriety date where I woke up in jail, and it was the first time I had truly humbled myself to the level that I think was necessary to get relief. In Wisconsin, the drinking culture in Wisconsin is absolutely insane. And so Milwaukee has Miller Brewing Company. The nickname is Brew City. To get sober in Brew City and have a huge recovery population here because the drinking culture is so crazy, to be able to recover out loud and proud it's my personality now. It replaced my drinking party girl personality. It has to be that way. You have to completely change, I believe. And so just as much as my reputation was party girl, drinking, now it's the polar opposite. And I do it just as loud as I did my party.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about, people will ask me, is this program more punitive than helpful? And I have to go back to, it's to protect the public.
Correct.
And it's a monitoring program. It's not designed, they encourage you to go out and seek your own recovery, whether that's AA or smart recovery. Some people went to their church, whatever it was. But did you feel like this pang of like, wow, this is so punitive?
I did not realize the magnitude of how much it was going to take. I definitely was naive about that. I don't call it punishment. I call it a consequence. Like it's a consequence of my actions that's allowing me to keep going forward and being a nurse. I don't know that I ever felt like it was punitive or punishment. I mean, it does seem that way sometimes, but I knew that it was a result of my actions, like you said, and that it was going to allow me to continue being a nurse.
What about the way that people treated you? Because you had mentioned most people were really supportive,
Hmm.
but then there was those instances coming across colleagues who were not.
I think it was just simply the fact that it's busy and people have to cover for me, and I was gone longer than 30 minutes, and that's not a lunch break. Until upper management said, we have to allow her to go. The upper management went so far to say, if we need the manager, the unit manager to come and help and cover, that's what we have to do. They're required by law to let me go.
Well, I ask you because I faced it really bad when I first went back into bedside care.
Okay.
I found out, and this is okay, and this is in psychiatric nursing. I was day shift. I found out that the night shift had Googled me, pulled up my license, of course, all my
Hmm.
stuff, and hovered around the computer to just gossip about what
Hmm.
kind of wackadoodle I was. And that was heartbreaking. You know,
Yeah.
that was heartbreaking to think. But it was also eye opening for me because I was kind of one of them. I used to have this perception of the world as a nurse. Like I
Hmm.
was kind of arrogant and I had this perception that people are either good or bad. Right?
Yeah.
There was this
Uh-huh.
black and white view of looking at the way that, especially with my nurse arrogance, it was like, ugh, I'm over here, you're over there. And after going through this, it was like, no, it's a lot more nuanced than that. And we're
Yeah.
human. We're going to
Right.
fuck up.
Right.
Like we all fuck up. And
Right.
addiction is a very human response,
Right.
right? To self-soothe.
And you would think in psychiatric nursing, with all the other, you would think it would be extra empathetic and understanding. I guess my response to that is, I mean, I'm sure people have Googled me, but if it's out in the open and in the public, then they don't have to Google me. Like I already told you. My daughter did Google me randomly and found my mugshot. And so, but thankfully, I've been insanely honest with my children. And so, because she knew, they already knew. I mean, I was gone. My treatment facilities stays. The first time I went to the hospital for alcohol withdrawal and then treatment during COVID, there was no visiting. I did not see my children for 35 days. Twice.
Wow.
Then the second time, I was in jail for 6 days over Christmas of 2020. And I went to treatment all during COVID, 6 months apart, no visiting twice. And then my DUI was in a different county from where I live. And so when I served house arrest, I actually had to go stay in a different county. So my kids, there's no hiding those types of absences anymore. When in 2020, I called it therapy. Mom's gone to therapy. She's upset. They were young. My oldest was 8 when this happened. My daughter was 5 and my youngest was 3. So my 3-year-old doesn't even remember me drinking. It was too much to explain to them at the time. And so it was just therapy. But once they could understand a little bit more, by the time I had to go away to house arrest, they were starting to ask questions. Because my initial response when they were like, why do you have to go away? And I said, oh, this is the punishment for the car accident. And they're like, well, why are you getting punished if it was an accident? And so that was when I think I peeled off the Band-Aid. Like, mommy was drinking, and that's why this is a problem. It's illegal to drink and drive. I'm pretty sure that was also when I, told them that was why I was gone to therapy and that I needed therapy for my drinking problem. And it was really called rehab. And they're okay. I mean, they're amazing. I hate to say kids are resilient because I don't think they're born that way. I think they become that way through what they have gone through. But my oldest son had a school project for like growth and development, and they had to research a drug, and they got to pick. And so he picked alcohol, and he told his entire class, my mom's an alcoholic, but she's a sober alcoholic and she's awesome. And it started this whole conversation, and somebody else in the classroom said, my daddy's in jail for dealing drugs. And somebody else said my daddy OD'd. And somebody else said my mommy's drunk on the floor still. And so it opened this whole conversation. So being this open with my kids is helping, shape that they can be so open about it too. I keep telling them, no one has to go very far in any family tree to find mental health, substance use, generational trauma, whatever it is. Nobody's perfect. People don't talk about it. And so they're changing that because they're so used to me being so open about it.
Yeah, my clients and I talk about what core memories kids will have. And when I
Yes.
listen to your story, the core memory will be mom was resilient. Mom did what she had to do to, follow the rules and get
Yeah.
better. And mom took control and mom fixed it. And mom, very proud of you for doing that. And
Yeah.
I think I kind of went through this. My stepsons had to see various aspects of my addiction, and they didn't really necessarily know about why they don't know about the monitoring program, but I'm really open. I mean, obviously I have a podcast. They can
Yeah,
easily find it all. And
for
I'm
sure.
open about it because we are human.
Right.
And I think if anything, kids need to see that you can be a human, you can fuck up royally, and you can fix it. And we do recover. Like,
We
you
do.
have to. And part of the reason I'm also big on this topic is when I was right out of the monitoring program, I had just graduated the 5-year program. I went to a nursing convention in Washington State, and there was a lot of talk about up and coming policies and this and that. And one of
Okay.
the speakers talked about the correlation between nurses getting caught with substance use issues and suicide. And nurses were unaliving themselves before they even went into a monitoring program out of fear, stigma, shame that they're going to lose their livelihood.
Yeah.
And I was blown away at this
Yes.
topic. But it didn't surprise me,
No.
right?
I mean, nurses, there's a growing problem in nurses that are working with suicide just in response to our jobs and the way it is nowadays. And so it doesn't surprise me that what you just said does not surprise me. It's horrible and it's sad. But yeah, especially after being in peer support recovery meetings and witnessing firsthand what these people are going through, it does not surprise me. I mean, these people were in rough mental shape, just
Yeah.
down and depressed. And then on top of all that, you're withdrawing and like, it just, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
At least mine was like broken up a little bit. Like the shock of everything was broken up.
Yeah, I made really good friends with a lot of people in my peer group, and one of the first thing I noticed is that I really identified with these nurses. They had real stories of,
Right.
like you could see how one would kind of easily slip into addiction or slip into drinking too much, slip
For
into
sure.
needing to steal a Percocet. You could see it when you heard their story. It didn't
Right.
sound so far away and Nurse Jackie, right?
Right. Right. And the peer support, the lady in Wisconsin, there's 2 ladies that do a lot of the work. And one woman received fentanyl in the emergency room for a broken bone. And she said as soon as she got it, she knew she was going to steal it. And she had no prior history of drug use. She said maybe she overused and abused alcohol, but that it really spiraled. And that was a lot of the stories that we hear with opioids start as a prescription or something like that. My God, especially as nurses, how manipulative we can be because of our knowledge. So she knew the half-life of fentanyl and she knew it would always be gone out of her system. So actually when she got caught, she knew, she was like, drug test me, go ahead. She said she was super calm and like, let's go, because she knew the half-life was gone. And I have a little similar story about manipulation. Before I got sober, in the end of my drinking, I was drinking 24/7 and I was having severe insomnia. And so of course I'm going to my doctor and complaining of anxiety and insomnia. I could not believe that she did not ask about drinking. She asked me about my drinking when I first met her, the first physical ever. And then she never asked again. I might have said something. Like it didn't get asked, and so I didn't offer it. And so then I was trying to get benzos. I knew benzos would probably put me back to sleep. I also knew that Valium and Xanax are long acting. And so I specifically asked for lorazepam so that I could take it in the middle of the night when I woke up at 2 a.m. and still be able to wake up at 5 or 5:30 and get ready to go to work. And after trying sertraline for a year or whatever and increasing the dose, she gave me the benzo. I couldn't believe it. When somebody says, I just need a short-acting benzo, and then you get it. But I had been manipulating for like a year, working towards that. And nobody knew any of that was happening. Like, so,
do you think that, like, what is your perspective on, like, every single person comes to me and says their job is the most stressful. Right? Like I've coached lawyers, teachers, other nurses, professionals, and every single person tells me their job is the most stressful. But as nurses, I kind of feel like we come at it, I mean, it's another level. Like people die, right?
Right.
We're in the shit.
Right.
And so how much of this, honestly, do you feel like came about because you've been in the trenches for so long?
So that's interesting that you asked that. And I actually didn't start drinking until I turned 21. So for me, I don't really know that nursing increased it or made it worse. I mean, it was an excuse. I had a bad shift. I deserve a drink. It was a crutch. I need something to calm my nerves. But like, I just think I was genetically born to have a problem with.
You had to, genetic predisposition.
Massive. Yeah. And my children do too, on both sides of their family tree, which is another reason why I'm so open about it. I don't tell them not to ever drink. I educate them and tell them they should be very careful and that they could choose to never start. I don't tell them they have to. I don't tell them they can never drink. It's obviously their choice. Knowing that there's a family history on both sides of the family tree, I just want them to know that there's never shame. I made sure in early sobriety that they knew that my problem was never because of them. That was a huge thing for me. You know, they say we always have to get sober for ourselves, which I did, but my kids were, I mean, a nanosecond behind that, spot on the list as a reason to get sober. I knew, like, I remember thinking to myself, I brought these kids into this world. And when in the end, when I was bad, like on the couch and couldn't get out through the fog, I remember thinking like, what am I doing? Like I'm not working. I took a leave of absence from work. I'm not being a mother. I am not a functioning member of society. That's how bad it got. I knew I needed to change and I wanted to. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you being so outspoken about all of this. And maybe we're getting near the end of the hour, but maybe we'll do this again as a part 2. Are you open to people reaching out to you on the internet, especially nurses, to talk about this kind of stuff?
Absolutely. For socials, my screen name includes nurse for that exact reason. My DMs are always open. I'm open to sharing. Like, I want to thank you for inviting me because talking about this nurse to nurse, showing others, I'm not just telling my story to a regular podcaster. I'm talking to another nurse who experienced this exact same thing and you completed it and you're done and you've moved on. And that is obviously the ultimate goal, to make it to long-term sobriety and carry the torch and pass the flame on. So that's what we're doing here. And my handle is sober_Steph_mom_nurse on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. And so if anyone wants to follow me there, I've shared reels that detailed my story, and I'm always open.
I love that. Thank you. I was just going to ask where your socials are.
Yes.
Yeah, connect with me, connect with Stephanie. I'm happy to always, talk about this kind of stuff. Of course, people have slid into my DMs and asked all kinds of stuff. Excuse me.
Yes.
Hoarse voice, but yeah.
No, you're fine.
We have to be talking about this. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor.
Thanks for spending this time with me. I love you all so very much, and I mean it. You can find me on all the socials at Rewired Sober. The links to join my coaching program are always in the show notes, as well as an email if you want to get in touch with the pod. So until next time.